not sure what we've got here, Charlie. But if we've got what I think we've got something. There's one way to find out. Ready? Yes. Yes, Charlie. We've got it. You see what's happening? It's not going lower and lower, it's going higher and higher. You know what that means, Charlie? It means just one thing. It's generating its own energy. You know what that means, Charlie? It means we've discovered a new kind of energy. A new kind of energy, Charlie. It's a breakthrough. A breakthrough, Charlie. Discovered. Substance X. Appearance subscribes to practical requirements of metastable compound, but whose behavior is distinctly non-classical. Hypothesis. The application of an external force triggers a molecular change, liberating energy of a type previously unknown. But Charlie, I suppose you think these are just rubber balls, or maybe a flying rubber ball, huh? But you know what this really is? Of course you don't. How could you? We just discovered it. We've got to give it a name, Charlie. Let's see. Flying rubber. Flying rubber. Rubber.
Hi everyone. Today we're here to talk about rubber. Now, as you just saw, Hollywood's representation of rubber, the magic flubber, that's able to bounce everywhere and has perfectly elastic collisions and basically creates a new source of energy. But obviously, this is not real. That's not actually a rubber. So, what is a real rubber? Well, my guess is right away you probably think of a rubber band. You know, stretch it, it goes back, you can fling it across a room, or you can even just bind papers together like you're supposed to do with it. Or maybe you think of, tires. Everyone knows that tires are made of rubber. But what really is a rubber? In this picture, you see the rubber matrix of a tire. Now, the black molecules that repeat together and form long strands form the polymer backbone of the rubber matrix. And the yellow molecules are crosslinkers that connect the polymers together to form a rubber matrix. The individual repeat units of a polymer are called monomers and normally contain a double bond. Now, during the process of polymerization, the double bond of a monomer is broken, which allows the monomer to connect to another monomer, which breaks its double bond, and the process repeats and repeats and repeats until you have a long chain of molecules called a polymer. Once created, the long polymer strands become entangled with each other and basically form the structure of what looks like a bowl of spaghetti. However, this bowl of spaghetti isn't a rubber yet. A rubber is formed once a crosslinker has been added. The addition of a crosslinker causes the polymer molecules to be physically bonded together by the crosslinker and are effectively linked, meaning that they are no longer able to be pulled apart and are individual strands, but are stuck as a matrix. Rubbers are important because of their elasticity, or their ability to reform their original shape even after a stress has been applied to them. Now, every substance has some form of elastic behavior. However, rubbers, due to their chemical cross-linking, are able to withstand great stresses and still return back to their original shape. However, like with every substance, there is a stress at which the rubber will begin to break apart and therefore no longer exhibit its elastic behavior. Since a rubber's elastic properties are due to the chemical cross-linking of the polymer matrix, one might think that adding more cross-linkers will increase the rubber's elasticity. However, this is wrong. A rubber, or an elastomer as they're formally called, is only a lightly cross-linked polymer system. Since the system is only lightly cross-linked, the rubber is able to stretch and deform and still maintain its original shape. However, it cannot flow when heat is applied like a thermoplastic. A thermoplastic is just the original polymer strands without any cross-linking. If heat is applied, the they're able to flow like a liquid, but then when heat is removed, they will return to a solid. Now, adding extra crosslinkers will begin to create a thermoset. Now, a thermoset is an elastomer that has had many chemical crosslinkings and therefore has become rigid. It is no longer able to stretch or deform like an elastomer can, and will not change its shape even if a large amount of heat is applied, hence the name thermoset. Before we move on, has anyone questioned why we call elastomers rubber even though it's actually rubber that is an elastomer? This is because the first elastomer to ever be discovered was polyisoprene, or natural rubber. That got its name because it was able to erase pencil marks from paper by rubbing the marks away. Since polyisoprene was called rubber, it has stuck throughout the centuries for every elastomer to be also put under this name, because everything was displaying properties like the original elastomer, natural rubber.
The different forms of natural rubber used was full of many choices from elastic balls, bands, and even pouches. The first usages of this rubber was by the Native Americans, Mexicans, and musicas. You know those people.
This is impossible.
Once the Spanish and the French found this new material, they went and started developing more ways to use it. In 1735, a Frenchman named Charles de la Camadine was the real first researcher. He studied the material, trying to figure out what it was made of and how it worked. And even though with this new research starting, yet nothing really happened for it to spread across the nations until...
When there's no man around, Goodyear should be.
Yes, that is right. Charles Goodyear vulcanized the rubber into tires, which spread through this nation, making the first research for Americans in the 1840s, accidentally of course, led to the discovery of making better tires for the vehicles already being produced. Vulcanization of rubber is a process that allows it to withstand heat and cold conditions in molding and shaping the material into tubes or essentially tires. In doing this type of research and study, it leads to the needing of natural rubber for the mass production plants for producing more tires.
Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
Following World War I, U.S. demand for rubber products had reached an all-time high. While rubber had initially been discovered in the Amazon rainforest, it was plantations established in Southeast Asia that accounted for a majority of the world rubber production. In anticipation for World War II, the U.S. began stockpiling crude rubber. At its height, stockpiles reached over 600,000 tons. U.S. fears of war were realized on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Japan had declared war on the U.S. They also launched a campaign of land wars throughout Southeast Asia. This cut off crucial supply routes for crude rubber to the U.S. The plantations in Southeast Asia, especially Malaysia, were far more productive than rubber collection from wild trees in the Amazon. America was running short on options. Rubber was crucial to manufacturing during the war, and the supply was dwindling. President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed the nation, asking Americans to collect any scrap rubber they had in their homes to donate to the government.
Specifically, we don't know how much used rubber there is in your cellar, your barn, your stockroom, your garage, your attic. The only way to find out is to get the used rubber in where it can stand up and be counted.
It worked. Americans successfully collected nearly 1 million tons of reclaimed rubber. This rubber was a huge asset to the war effort and accounted for nearly 82% of the United States rubber consumption in 1942. And on August 15, 1945, news of Japan's surrender reached the United States. Spontaneous celebrations broke out all over America. The war was won. But the demand for rubber was still imminent, and we needed an alternative to natural rubber. While synthetic rubber had been discovered and manufactured before the war, it was not widely used. The first synthetic tires were introduced at the same time as a low-quality Victory tires made from reclaimed rubber. The two were often mistaken for each other, leading to public distrust of synthetic tires. Little was known about synthetic rubbers. Charles Goodyear had developed a process to improve natural rubber by vulcanization, but no one at the time understood why the process had that effect on the rubber. It wasn't until after the war that researchers understood the elastic qualities of rubber lent themselves to the cross-linked structure.
Around 1936, Paul Flory studied the distribution of chain lengths. Flory created the first complete mathematical model in polymers in solution. In Europe, Werner Kern in 1936 proposed a random coil model, which states that the chain molecules in the solution can be molded as a random coil. He was then able to come up with a mathematical model to explain the source of the retractive force in rubber elasticity. Another leading figure in the study of the physical properties of rubber was Geoffrey Gee. Consideration of the osmotic pressure of rubber solutions and the swelling of cross-linked rubber led Gee to make some of the best thermodynamic measurements. Gee and Flory were able to create a sound foundation for polymer science. One of the pressing problems in polymer science in the early 1940s was the quantitative theory of rubber elasticity. During the 1940s, Flory collaborated with John Rayner in the study of polymer networks and gels. The new insights continued the theory of rubber elasticity. These two were able to confront the problem of swollen rubber. Although there were problems with the fundamentals during this time, they were able to accurately describe the change in the elongation modulus with the swelling of rubber. They were also finally able to come up with the equation to describe this phenomena. During the 1940s, Guth was able to explain the entropic origin of the elastic force derived from the observation that this force is proportional to the absolute temperature. During this time period, Guth collaborated with James, creating the James-Guth model of rubber elasticity. They were able to make conclusions about the kinetic theory of rubber elasticity. This research opened the door to create a future of rubber elasticity.
Now what? Well, there is future research happening right now and to come. Look at them. They are the future with double cross-linking networks, modifying old theories, elasticity equation analysis, and discovering new theories. Rubber, rubber, rubber. From ancient natives to European colonies to American citizens. People developed the timeline of the progression of rubber elasticity. Rubber elasticity is a broad field of study. By work such as this, the door opened for future scientists, allowing many more people to either revise the classical theories or create new ones. The key to unlocking what really bounds the rubber elasticity has been handed off, and only time will tell what this future may bring.
come out right. Once I went to hear them play at a club outside of town. I was so surprised, I was hypnotized by the sound his cats put down. When I saw this short fat guy stretch a man between his toes, hey, I laughed so hard 'cause the man got down when it finally reached his nose. Hey, y'all, prepare yourself for the rubber band. Whoa, you never heard a sound like the rubber band. Man, you're bound to lose control when the rubber band starts to jam. Got that rubber band up on his toes, and then he wriggled it up around his nose. Guaranteed to blow your mind. Playing all that music, yeah, keeping time.